all, there are three main groups of characters that we need to know about. They are the lovers, there's four of them, there's 2 girls and 2 boys. There are the fairies or the spirits. They're not like Tinkerbell type fairies, they're like fairies in the like Gaelic sense, like they are spirits of the woods. They can do magic and stuff like that. And then there are these characters called the mechanicals, which is something that's pulled, Shakespeare calls them rude mechanicals because their acting is so bad, they're like machines. And they are regular people who are going to put on a play. So they have regular jobs, like Nick Bottom is a weaver, and Snub is a joiner, and Flute is a bellows mender. So they're like regular dudes doing a community theater play, and it's comedically bad. So these are the 3 main groups of people. There is also, all of this is centered around Theseus and Hippolyta. Theseus is a duke, and his wedding is coming up, and that's what they're going to talk about at the beginning of the play. And then, of course, all 3 of these groups of characters come together. It's unlocked. All 3 of these groups of characters come together at the end of the play for this wedding, so that's the kind of thing that holds it all together. All right, so here we're going to start.
Hey, I'm Cliff, and these are my notes. The Portraits of Bookatoon! The course of true love never did run smooth. That's the central theme in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, a play that rejoices in the magical power of love to transform our lives, but also portrays love's excesses and foolishness.
And it explores the duality of fantasy and reality, with its joyful, festive celebration of dreams, illusions, and poetry.
Oh, well, that was very puckishly explained, Puck. Thank you. And our play begins in ancient Athens, birthplace of democracy.
Okay, Athens is where?
Greece.
Yeah, so Shakespeare often set his plays in different locations. This play is set in ancient Greece. So that's why in here the characters are wearing togas and stuff, but it was of course written by Shakespeare in the late 1500s.
With order, reason, and logic. It's 4 days before the Duke Theseus is to marry Hippolyta, former queen of the Amazonians.
Oh.
Theseus is upset because time is moving so slowly.
Aww.
But Hippolyta assures him that the 4 days will pass quickly. Their relationship hasn't always been so loving. I won her in a battle. Duke Theseus is consulted by Aegeus, the tyrannical father of Hermia.
Okay, so in the beginning of the play, the first of the lovers that we meet is Hermia, and her dad, Aegeus, walks in, and he is super mad and grouchy the whole time. He is not a multi-dimensional character. He's only in 2 scenes. So he's really mad at Hermia.
Her 2 eager suitors, Lysander and Demetrius.
I want my daughter to marry Demetrius.
But I'm in love with Lysander.
Yeah, I'm just as good as this guy. If Hermia won't marry Demetrius, she should die. It's the law of Athens. And
Okay, so let's talk about that. So Duke Theseus is like the ruler of this area. He makes decisions. So Aegeus is upset because his daughter is Hermia, right? And Aegeus has betrothed her to this guy named Demetrius. And so back then, women didn't have rights in the same way that they do now. So he had decided that Hermia was going to marry Demetrius. Hermia doesn't want to marry Demetrius. She wants to marry this guy named Lysander because they're in love with each other. And she wants to marry him. And Aegeus, her dad, basically says, I want you, Duke Theseus, to bring down the law of Athens. And the law says that either, because my daughter belongs to me, she has to do what I say, or she has to be put to death if she chooses not to. He's basically trying to threaten her into doing this thing that she doesn't want to do. In this confrontation, Lysander says, I've heard that Demetrius already told this other girl, Helena, that he loves her, and then he dropped her like a sack of potatoes to be with Hermia. Side note, Helena and Hermia, best friends. So also, Hermia doesn't want to date or marry the guy that her best friend is in love with. Her best friend's ex-boyfriend. it's weird. Demetrius denies all of this and is like, no, I never had anything to do with her, blah, blah, blah. And Duke Theseus is like, well, I did hear a rumor that y'all were dating. And Demetrius is like, but he basically has changed his mind. And so there's like a little love triangle. Lysander and Demetrius at the beginning of the play, both really in love with Hermia. Nobody likes Helena. Helena's a big sad sack about it.
Irene is her father!
Agreed, but here's another option. She could spend her whole life in a nunnery.
Yeah. Theseus, trying to be diplomatic, says, well, you know, she doesn't have to be put to death. She could just become a nun and never see any boys ever. And Hermia's like, that also is not a great choice for me.
That's a horrible idea!
You have until the day of our wedding to decide.
Hey,
That means it's 4 days, because they've already conveniently, thank you very much, Shakespeare, mentioned right before this that they're going to get married in 4 days.
let's escape the unjust laws of Athens by moving into my widowed aunt's house where we can marry and live in peace. What could possibly get in the way of our love there? Come on!
Okay, so there's this very beautiful scene that they've abbreviated into a few sentences where Lysander says, I have an aunt who lives in a different town. So why don't we run away through the woods? And at some point, you guys, all these characters are going to end up in the woods. So why don't we run away? We'll go through the woods, the back way, the secret way. We'll go to my aunt's house, and we won't have to follow the laws of Athens because we won't be here anymore, and then me and you can get married. And Hermia's like, cool, that sounds like a really good plan. So, of course, Helena shows up.
Hermia's best friend Helena, whose unrequited love for Demetrius is driving her crazy.
How the heck did you capture this wonderful beefcake's heart?
I hate Demetrius, okay?
Hermia and Lysander tell Helena about their plan to leave Athens, and in a last-ditch effort.
So, yeah, Helena, this is a little confusing for you to understand maybe, but Helena is so in love with Demetrius, who technically once really liked her, and she has this whole soliloquy in front of the audience about how Lysander used to praise her and tell her she was beautiful and talk about how in love with her he was until he met her best friend, and then he just stopped talking to her. He just ghosted her. So Helena is so desperate to get Demetrius's attention back that once she figures out what's going to happen with Hermia and Lysander running away, partly because I think she's a little jealous, and partly because she wants Demetrius just to be nice to her or listen to her at all, she decides that what she's going to do is tell Demetrius about what Hermia is doing, because she knows that Demetrius is going to follow Hermia into the woods. And so she decides that she also will follow Demetrius as he chases Hermia and Lysander through the woods. Because she just wants him to say even thank you to her. Thank you for helping me out, even if it's this weird way that she's going about it.
To gain his love, Helena tells Demetrius.
Hermia!
Meanwhile, in a cottage across town, carpenter/theater director Peter Quince is assigning roles to his blubbering ragtag troupe of actors.
Okay, Nick Bottom is sort of the coolest of them. Like, everybody thinks he's the cool, funny guy. What is it? It's 3 groups of people that eventually all get smashed together, but it hasn't happened yet. We have to meet them first. This is the exposition. So, they're all doing this, and guess what? They're going to talk about how they need to rehearse their play, and they don't want anybody from the town to hear them rehearsing. So where do you think they're going to go?
Into the woods.
Yes. Okay, they're going to go to the woods, where we already know that Lysander, Hermia, Demetrius, and Helena are all headed. Right?
People, Bottom, you're gonna play.
I'm such a good actor, I'm gonna play all the roles!
That's a big whole scene where, like, as he's handing out the parts, Nick Bottom says he wants to play all of the parts, and he does, like, he starts saying the lines of all the different characters, and eventually Peter Quince is like, just be quiet. You're playing the lead part, be quiet.
Wacky squabbling, Peter casts the play as he sees fit, and they agree to meet that night in the fairy enchanted woods, which are ruled by the lusty, hot-tempered fairy king Oberon.
Okay, so in the woods are, of course, where the fairies are, because they're like the spirits of the woods or whatever. These are the only important ones that you need to know their names. There's the king and queen of the fairies. There's Oberon and Titania. And at the beginning, when we first meet them in the woods, before everybody has got there, they are having a huge fight. And Titania says, our fight is causing, tropical storms and earthquakes and all of this stuff, and it's all because, Oberon, you're being totally unreasonable. And he's like, listen, I'm not being unreasonable. What he wants from Titania is a changeling child, which is a mythological reference you might not know, but it's basically like a baby that can take the shape of other things. And Titania says, I won't give you this changeling child. It was the child of my friend who died because she was a mortal human, and I'm not going to give this baby to you because that's a totally reasonable thing to say. But Oberon's like, I want a henchman. And she's like, that's dumb. I'm leaving. And so Oberon gets mad, and his basically like sidekick, Puck, also called Robin Goodfellow, he's going to call him in, and they're going to come up with an evil plan. So that's the next thing that happens. And of course, this evil plan is going to go wackily awry, and affect everyone else in the plan.
In a huge argument with his fairy queen, Titania.
Why are you always having affairs?
Why are you always having affairs?
Enough already! You know this argument has led to chaos in the natural world.
And it will end if you relinquish the Indian boy you stole!
The changeling child is from the country of India. That's why he says that.
Me.
I didn't steal him from you. I promised his mother, who died in childbirth, I'd raise him.
I love you, but I really hate you sometimes.
Why Oberon wants the Indian boy to be his servant so badly, nobody knows. But he hatches a plan to get him back with the help of his mischievous joker, Robin Goodfellow.
My friends call me Puck. You find a plant called love and idleness. If you squeeze its juice on someone's eyes while they sleep, they fall in love with the first creature they see.
Okay, this is a very important plot point because this is the thing that makes all the stuff go wrong. So basically, Oberon has this very long monologue where he says, this one time, I was out flying around in a field, and I saw Cupid. Cupid, the guy that shoots the fat baby that shoots the love arrows. And Cupid's flying through the air. And Cupid tries to shoot an arrow at a person, but he misses, and it lands on this little flower. And that flower turned purple, and it used to be white. And so now that flower has magic love powers. I need you to go get this flower and then bring it back here. And if you drop the juice from this flower in someone's eyes while they're asleep, when they wake up, the first person they see, they're going to fall madly in love with.
Demetrius is going to get it.
A bunch of people are going to get it. So, because Puck is sort of like a silly, impetuous, impulsive person. So he uses this stuff all willy-nilly and messes a bunch of stuff up. But Oberon originally wants him to get it so that Puck will take this flower, give it to Titania, and then Titania is going to fall in love with, he hopes, some kind of beast that lives in the woods, like a wild boar or a bear or something. And then she's going to be chasing around a wild animal, and she's going to be all distracted. And while she's all distracted, he'll be able to get this baby that he wants to be his hench person. That's his original plan. But then a bunch of other stuff happens.
When they wake up, I'm going to make Titania fall for something real gross. And I won't release her from the spell until she gives me the boy back.
I love you.
Well, you make me want to barf.
That's a whole scene that they've condensed down, and it's actually really pathetic and sad because Helena is following Demetrius, and Demetrius says, you told me Hermia was going to be here, but I don't see her. And Helena says, I'm just telling you what she told me. Demetrius, why are you so mean to me? And he says, because I hate you and I think you're gross. And she says this really sad thing where she's like, I don't care what kind of attention you give to me. You could treat me like your dog. You could kick me and you could be mean to me and I would still love you. You could, as long as you will give me any attention. And he basically says, ugh. and they keep going. It's really sad. One of the themes of this play for Shakespeare is how, especially I think young people in love, it's so intoxicating and entrancing that it makes you behave foolishly or do things you wouldn't usually do.
Some nasty young man named Demetrius just went by. Squirt some love juice in his eyes so he'll fall in love with a girl named Helena who...
Unfortunately, Oberon gives very poor instructions. He says, listen, I just overheard this horrible guy being really mean to this girl that's in love with him. So what I want you to do, Puck, is look for a guy in a toga in the woods and then use this potion on him so that he'll fall in love with this girl. But unfortunately, we know, as the audience, there are 2 dudes in togas gonna be in the woods tonight. So it's gonna get messed up. Yeah.
Crushing on him. Fuzzy! Funsies indeed!
Yeah, they just do this for fun.
Wake when some vile thing is near!
Lay further off.
Okay, so then we put the stuff on Hermia, or not Hermia, on Titania. She's asleep. She hasn't woken up yet. She's sleeping in her bower, which is like a big nest thing. Puck goes off, and I cut this scene, but basically Lysander and Hermia get lost, and they don't know where they are, and Lysander's like, maybe it's really dark, we don't know where we are, we should just go to sleep. And Hermia's like, listen, we're not married yet, you need to sleep really far away from me for proprietary reasons. You need to be a gentleman and you're gonna sleep way over there. So Puck comes in and is like, oh look, a guy in a toga and a girl really far away from him. He must hate her. That's why she's so far away. So he's like, this is the guy that I'm supposed to use this potion on. So he goes over and puts the potion on the wrong guy.
Puck sees Hermia and Lysander sleeping apart, mistakes them for Demetrius and Helena, and squeezes the love juice on Lysander instead of Demetrius.
Okay. I know. So, unfortunately, Demetrius is, I guess, nearsighted or something, and just runs by and doesn't notice that they're asleep. Helena, following him, is running and stops, and she's like, oh no. And then she looks, and she's like, Lysander, uh-oh, I wonder if he's dead. So she goes over and wakes him up.
Oh, beautiful!
What about Hermia?
I hate her, but I love you!
Yeah, so, Lysander wakes up and goes on and on with this whole thing like, oh, I was a fool when I thought that I loved Hermia, but really, I love you, Helena. You're the one that I love, and I made foolish choices, so I don't love Hermia anymore. I love you, Helena. I love you so much.
Mr. Clinton,
Yes?
Sayla be ready to check out, please.
Okay. So, now, Helena loves Demetrius. Demetrius loves Hermia. Hermia loves Lysander, but Lysander loves Helena. So, there's no mutual couples happening at this point. So that is unfortunate for them. And Helena thinks, because Helena unfortunately has a very low self-esteem, Helena thinks that Lysander is being mean to her, like that he's playing a big joke on her, because he ran away to elope with her best friend, and then he's like doing these over-the-top like declarations of love and talking about how beautiful she is, and she's like, why are you being mean to me, man? And he's like, I'm not, I'm crying, I love you. And she's like, please leave me alone. Well, so she runs and he chases after her, and right before he goes, he says, Hermia, I hope you don't wake up, so that you don't know where I am, and I'm gonna be far away by the time that you wake up.
I just dreamt that a snake ate my heart.
Where's my boyfriend?
Meanwhile, the actors are
Then Hermia wakes up and no one's there. And she doesn't know where anybody is and she's all in the woods by herself. So she runs off. Okay, and now we're gonna go over to these guys because they've got to get woven into the fabric of the story, right? So they're rehearsing in the woods this really bad play and Puck is gonna end up watching it and laughing at how bad it is.
in their play, which is essentially a comedic Romeo and Juliet with a lion.
That is freaking awful! Especially that guy! I'd have give him it. Okay, where were we?
So, yeah, they use the English word for donkey, and I cut it. So there's a lot of very sort of
Unique terms.
young little boy humor about what kind of animal he is, and they make a lot of puns about it. There's a lot of jokes about it. But anyway, he turns Nick Bottom into a guy with a donkey's head because his character exits, and while he's exiting, he changes him, and then when he comes back into the scene, he scares all of his friends because they're like, oh, there's spirits here, you've been bewitched, and they all run away. Nick Bottom, being a total idiot, thinks that they're all messing with him, and they're like, they think that I'm scared, but I'm not scared. I'm gonna sing a song so that they know that I'm not scared, and they're all gonna run back. But guess who is sleeping very near where he is? It's very
Fix this Bottom, not realizing he has singing, which wakes Titania.
What angel wakes me from my flowery bed?
That is a direct quote from the play. What angel wakes me from my flowery bed? I pray you, gentle mortal, sing again. Mine ear is much enamored of thy note, and mine eye is much enamored of thy shape. So she basically, Titania of all the ones is probably the one that is the most like passionately in love from this potion. So she's super in love with Nick Bottom, who for his part's like, cool, and just kind of goes with it. So now Puck has made Nick Bottom fall in love with Titania, and she's going to be very distracted. So Oberon's plan seems to be going correctly, but he doesn't know about the other mix-up yet.
Lovely line. Puck explains all these events to Oberon, who is pleased with the results until...
Where's Lysander? You killed him and hid the body.
No, I didn't.
No, I did.
So, Oberon's like, good job, Puck. You did so good. So proud of you. And then, right then, Demetrius and Hermia run by. And Demetrius is like, he's like, I don't know where Lysander is, but I'm glad he's gone. And she's like, it's just your fault. You murdered him. And he's like, no, of course I didn't. I don't even know where he is. And she gets really mad. So, Oberon gets mad at Puck and says, you have to fix this, Puck. That was the guy you were supposed to use this potion on. So take this flower and put it in Demetrius's eyes so that he falls in love with Helena, which is what you were supposed to do as well.
Can they like just not see the fairies or like?
No, they can't.
But then how does the other dude like?
Nick Bottom, I think that they can choose to make themselves visible. Shakespeare does not really address that. Nick Bottom is the only one that literally sees them at any point.
Why am I so sleepy?
They take a lot of naps in this play. They take like 4 naps. I don't know why that is. But Demetrius falls asleep. They use the potion on him.
Miss Fairy, you chose the wrong medium. Go get Helena and bring her here. I'll squeeze love juice in Demetrius's eye, so he'll fall in